This week I finished a 3-month journey through one of the most beloved fantasy stories ever written. I've read one of the smartest political fantasy novels I've touched in a long time and immediately jumped back into a galaxy-spanning warfare. So let's talk about what I read. So it's done. After 3 months of reading The Lord of the Rings with the Lone Star Book Club, I've officially reached the end of The Return of the King. And with it the end of my time in Middle-earth, at least for now. And this really did feel like the end of a journey, not just a book. There's something kind of magical about reading a story slowly over months instead of rushing through it. Middle-earth becomes less of a setting and more of a place you've been living in. The landscapes start to feel familiar, and even the slower sections start to feel like part of the rhythm rather than obstacles to get through. And one of the most talked about things with Return of the King is how many endings it has. The ring is destroyed, great evil falls, eagles fly, everyone cheers, and then Tolkien basically says, here's another emotional goodbye. And honestly, I loved it. Because war stories rarely end when the battle ends. They end when the people who survived figure out how to exist afterward. And Tolkien gives us that long exhale. He lets us walk back through the world and feel what's changed. And the Shire especially hits differently now. After everything we've seen, coming back to Hobbit life feels smaller but also more fragile. You understand what was at stake in a way you just couldn't at the beginning. And Frodo's arc really stood out to me this time. His ending isn't triumphant, it's honest. He did what no one else could, but it cost him something permanent. And there's a quiet sadness to his farewell that feels very on fantasy in the best possible way. It's Tolkien acknowledging that some wounds don't close just because the war is over. And that makes the victory feel more real, not less. And Aragorn finally becoming king also lands differently when you read slowly. It doesn't feel like wish fulfillment, it feels like a burden accepted. He's not stepping into glory, he's stepping into his responsibility, into rebuilding a world that's been shattered. And that tone, bittersweet and reflective, is what makes Tolkien's ending linger. And reading this with a group added something special too. Knowing other people were moving through the same chapters and reacting to the same moments made it feel communal in a way solo reading just doesn't capture. Now this was a reread for me. I first read it about 20 years ago in this Dutch version, and coming back to it now in English and just being older in general, I enjoyed it way more. It also made me realize I kind of want to reread some of my other favorite fantasy series that I experienced in Dutch when I was younger. Stuff like Harry Potter and Song of Ice and Fire. I'm just also saying this so I can hold up these books, which is something I miss doing. And since both started in the 90s, they actually fit pretty neatly into my reading plans. But yeah, I'm generally going to miss having Middle-earth as part of my weekly routine. It's one of those worlds that feels deeper each time you visit, and slower reading just reinforces that. Also this week I finished Daughter of the Empire by Raymond Feist and Jenny Wurts. We go from mythic, fate-driven epic fantasy to a story where survival depends entirely on how well you can read a room. And I think Daughter of the Empire was just excellent. Quietly intense and consistently smart, and built around a protagonist who wins with her brain more than anything else. And Mara is such a refreshing fantasy lead. She's not a chosen one, and she's not the most powerful person in the room. Half the time she's the most vulnerable person in the room. What she has is awareness, patience, and the ability to think long term in a culture obsessed with honor, status, and immediate retaliation. And the tension comes from knowing she can't just fight her way out. She has to outthink people who've been playing this political game their whole lives. And a lot of fantasy claims to be political, but then resolves conflicts with battles. Here, the politics are the battlefield. Reputations fall, families rise and collapse, and a single misstep could erase generations of legacy. And that constant pressure makes even small conversations feel loaded. It reminded me a bit of Game of Thrones in terms of scheming and social maneuvering, but without the relentless bleakness. There's tension, but also satisfaction when Mara pulls off a plan. And what's also fascinating is how this story deepens the larger world. If you've read the Rift War books, you've seen Calawan from the outside. And here you live inside its culture, and it feels completely different from Mythemia. And that shift in perspective makes the world feel massive. It's not just another continent, it's another worldview, another value system, another way of understanding power. And by the end, I wasn't just invested in Mara, I was invested in the survival of her house, her people, and her future. And that's a strong sign the book did its job. So I'm very ready to continue this trilogy. And afterwards, I started Mobilization by Yoshiki Tanaka, the 5th book in the Legend of the Galactic Heroes. And this book starts right away after Stratagem, the previous book. And Tanaka still doesn't miss. Some series give you a breather between big arcs, but not this one. Mobilization drives straight back into strategic planning, political maneuvering, and the slow tightening of a galaxy on the brink. And even when the characters are just talking, it never feels like filler. Every conversation is about power or military positioning, and you constantly feel like history is being shaped in these command centers. And one of my favorite things about this series is how it avoids simple good versus evil. The Empire and the Alliance both have strengths and both have flaws. And both have people trying to do the right thing and people absolutely not doing that. It makes every development more interesting because you're not just asking who will win, you're asking what kind of system deserves to survive. And Tanaka never gives easy answers. Right now, Mobilization feels like the moment in a chess match where all the pieces start moving at once. Commanders are shifting, fleets are repositioning, and political tensions are tightening. And Tanaka has this habit of introducing characters who seem minor until suddenly they're pivotal. So I've learned not to underestimate anyone with a name and a uniform. It's dense in ideas, but still incredible readable. And I think the balance is rare in military sci-fi at this scale. And I'm just happy to be back in this universe. Few series handle war, politics, and character interplay this well without becoming dry or overwhelming. And next up, I plan to read The Crystal Shard by R.A. Salvatore. And so I'm veering into something that sounds like pure classic fantasy adventure. And after Tolkien's emotional epic uh, and Wurts and Feist's political chess match and Tanaka's space warfare, I'm kind of ready for something that embraces the roots of adventure fantasy. And from what I know, this is iconic D&D style storytelling. Memorable characters, clear stakes, big threats, and that sense of a party on a quest energy. And honestly, that sounds perfect right now. Sometimes you want moral complexity, and sometimes you want snow, swords, and a glowing evil crystal. Balance in all things. And I think it's a fun mix of tones and scales, from deeply personal endings to galaxy-wide power struggles. As always, I wish you a great reading week. Let me know what you've been reading, and I'll see you in the next update. Bye.